of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. This is our regular meeting, May 12th. We will begin with the roll call, and I would note that all commissioners are here, with the exception of Commissioner Engel, who is excused, and Commissioner Fleming is joining us remotely. We'll have a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, and tonight I would ask that Commissioner Rothrock lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome everybody. We'll start with petitions, complaints, suggestions from citizens. Does anybody wish to address the board? Mr. Breach? No? Okay. All right, on to approval of minutes. This is from our April 28th meeting, our workshop meeting. And I know there have been a couple corrections made, suggested by Commissioner Hisrell. Are you in a position to make a motion?
Yeah. I'll move for approval of the minutes of the April 28th workshop meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Napper. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports of committees. Buildings and Grounds, Commissioner Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have much to report, but the administration building renovations continue. And the target substantial completion date is the end of May. So we hopefully will be meeting in the newly renovated boardroom next meeting. That concludes my report.
Is that the workshop meeting or the regular meeting?
The regular meeting, oh.
So in
no.
June?
Regular meeting, yeah, not workshop.
Okay.
Oh, no, the workshop meeting will be 25th, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, the first meeting in June.
Yeah, that was advertised for here already, so.
Yeah, yeah, we're good.
All right, Budget and Finance, Commissioner Fleming, are you there?
Yes, Mr. President. The Budget and Finance Committee and the Susquehanna Township Authority are meeting on May 20th for a joint meeting. The meeting is going to be on the calendar to discuss, among other things, the bond issue for the authority, as well as other matters that may come before us. So that meeting is scheduled for next week. So, and that concludes my report.
Very good, thank you. Public Works, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, Mr. President. The Public Works Department continues to work on the sweeping, and we'll be working on that schedule for the heavy debris of the winter season, and then we'll move on and we'll work on that schedule, and it will start June 6th. Also, last report is the repair leaks of the Edgemount Firehouse, and that firehouse roof, that ends my report, sir.
Thank you. Health and Sanitation, Commissioner Barczak.
Yes, Mr. President. The next yard waste pickup by Penn Waste will be Saturday, May 21st. And just of note, I know the yard waste pickup is usually scheduled for the first and third Saturdays of the month. In June, it will be the 11th and the 18th. So maybe we can put that out to residents as a reminder in case they don't check the Penn Waste calendar, maybe on the website and social media, whatnot, as the time approaches. And then one other item I had regarding the yard waste pickup, there seems to be continuing issues with Penn Waste not picking up yard waste. I got some calls about the last yard waste pickup, and I did a walk through my neighborhood, and there were several blocks that Penn Waste didn't pick up. And I think it was in other neighborhoods as well, because I saw in many of the neighborhood groups, residents were commenting that their yard waste was not picked up. So I guess my question is, this is part of an ongoing discussion. I understand Penn Waste says they have staffing issues, but also our residents rely on having the waste picked up when they put it out. So I'm wondering if we've had any more conversations with Penn Waste, or what we can do to hold them to their contract and pick up the waste when it's put out.
Our manager, Dave Volka, is meeting remotely. Can you hear us, Dave?
Yes, I can.
You have any update?
Yes, that's correct. So we've been having, and I appreciate the question, Commissioner Barczyk. We've had a number of conversations with Joel Washak at Penn Waste, and we've been trying to kind of nip these issues in the bud as they emerge. But I think you're correct. It's certainly been indicative of kind of a larger theme. And so while we continue to monitor, I think one suggestion that may be considered would be to perhaps have Mr. Washak come and talk to the board, so that maybe there's a direct dialogue that could take place, and perhaps we could have a better understanding of the issues that they're experiencing, perhaps as a company, with regard to retention and recruitment of new employees, and also perhaps what they're doing to resolve that going forward. So, I mean, I'm certainly willing to take direction from the board on this one. I could also report back to the board and get maybe a more thorough report from Mr. Washak, and then we can go from there. So, it's kind of been a multi-pronged approach thus far, but if there's interest in perhaps inviting into a future board meeting, I'm willing to do that as well.
Well, in advance of that, it might be helpful for him to, present you with a game plan of what he plans to do. I mean, they have an obligation under the contract to pick up trash, and it's more than just a convenience item. It's a public health and safety item, and that's on them. So I understand his workforce problems, but if you could ask him to come up with a game plan as to what he hopes to do, what he intends to do, and then follow that up with a presentation at a board meeting.
Mr. President, if I may add, to fix the problem, he has to acknowledge there's a problem. Joel Washak of Penn Waste, and many of his responses to my emails and to the township manager's emails have been, well, he has to verify that he's doubting whether the waste has in fact been left behind. So he's not even really acknowledging that it hasn't been picked up. He said, he looks at the truck GPSs and said, well, they drove down the street. Well, just because they drove down the street doesn't mean that they stopped and picked up the trash. So he's pretty much denying that a problem exists, at least when I email him and some of the emails I've seen that he sent to the township manager.
Yeah.
So,
well, the answer is to get us to a resolution and to have the trash picked up. And, I think Dave can have that conversation with Joel privately. I mean, we're not going to go out and take pictures of loaded trash cans. That's on them to make sure that it's picked up. And you're right. GPS just has green dots going down the street at a certain mile per hour, but it doesn't say whether or not they picked them up. It's not verification, unless there's a picture. So instead of us getting in the weeds at this point, I mean, Joel's been fairly responsible before COVID. Let's give him a chance to give Dave a game plan and come forward with us. All right. Anything else? Does that sound all right to you, Dave?
It does. Yep. Yes, sir.
All right. I'm sorry, was there anything else, Jody? Health and sanitation. Okay. Admin and personnel, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, Mr. President. I would ask that the township manager, if he would, give a briefing on the performance evaluation system for admin personnel.
Yes, I will, Commissioner Napper. Thank you. So there are a couple of agenda items up later tonight, but
Okay.
I think we've had some good discussion, and believe Nancy Hess is in the audience there. I can't see just everybody, but our consultant on this project, who has assisted in the development of the performance evaluation instrument. What's presented for you this evening would be consideration of adoption of the policy to implement that measure, and we can get into the specifics shortly in the agenda. I can answer any questions that you might have now regarding that if you'd like.
Sounds great. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. That is my report, Mr. President.
I'm wondering if it makes sense at this point to ask Nancy to give a brief overview of what's in it, because we'll be voting on 2 resolutions afterwards. Does that make sense, Dave?
Absolutely, that'd be the president's prerogative. You certainly could.
No, I'm just trying to think out what makes most sense to the rest of the board. If you're ready, Nancy. If not, I can certainly wait.
Okay, I'll just give a brief overview of this, and then again, if you would like to have questions or discussion, we can go from there. But we began this process in 2021, which seems like an eternity ago. But with strong encouragement and leadership from the board, we did come together. I've worked with management teams for local government for a lot of years, and I was able to come in and just work with the team to really facilitate development of a performance system. We, together with the team, designed a template which really encompasses the plan itself, the review process, really encompasses a few key items. One is each year there will be a review of the job with the employee being reviewed. There will be development of goals, review of goals, and also development of goals that are in line with the priorities and larger goals of the township. Throughout the year, there will be some check-in and feedback process that enables the supervisor, manager, and the employee to have some discussion in terms of how the year is progressing with respect to those goals. And there's also competencies identified in the performance system, which are really specific to the particular challenges and needs of that employee. So the system really has some consistency. It helps to create some accountability and reliability, but it's also, it allows for each department to have specific goals for their department and for their people. So we had both team meetings to talk about goals, and there were individual meetings between myself and directors to help them sort of tailor what they wanted to do within their department and specific goals for their employees. We had some overarching goals that we sort of worked around. This was working with Dave Patzer, and there could be some changes as we move into this year, but at the time we really zeroed in on building lean capacity at the township, breaking down silos and creating a sort of one-team thinking across the departments, and also creating a customer-centric culture. We have some next steps outlined just through discussion with Dave Kravolka. We do want to use this 2022 as a time for implementation. I will be available as needed if there are still some work to be done with some of the directors, particularly new ones that have come on board. And we will just think of this year as a pilot effort to really make sure we have a good workable system in place that people are familiar and comfortable with as we get started. The performance review policy before you just outlines some of the ways in how it will look in implementation. I do want to make one note, and that is that in the last section, titled pay adjustments based on performance, that the specifics there are in fact examples. This is not anything that is set in stone, but each year there would be sort of a review of what the economic indicators suggest for how merit pay would be distributed. So I would expect that once you get through the performance review process, that the management team will have a recommendation for you with some specifics, based on those economic indicators. And what you see there is something of how it might look, as an example. With that, I would be glad to take some questions.
There's actually two things we'll be considering tonight. One is adopting the policy overall, which staff recommends. And you're right, we've been working on this for 2 years. Seems like longer than that, doesn't it? Well, it has been for you and me. Anyway, and then the other is retainer. I mean, the last time we did any work with you was during COVID, I think, and everything was telephonic. So now it comes down to implementation, and there's some, services that we'll need that David, you have talked about to actually implement the program.
Right.
So we'll consider those, next coming up in our agenda. But does anybody have any questions, specifics of Nancy?
Yeah, I have a question. You were referring to performance awards. Is that the COLA Plus things that are in the plan?
Yes, exactly. How that distribution will look exactly, whether there's,
So that's just an example of one way it could be done.
Right.
Because I didn't know actually how that matched up with what we've been doing, or is that going to be a significant change or what?
What is outlined in, really what I would say is a pretty good standard, best practice for the way it might look. Again, there's variation on how you might do it in a particular year, but it's going to look something like that.
Okay. Also, the other thing I noticed was it refers to a human resource manager in various places, and I don't know if we have a human resources manager too.
Yeah, Alicia serves that role.
Okay, that's all I had.
Anybody else with any questions? Steve, you're okay with then later on the agenda, just going through? Okay. All right, good. Thanks, Nancy. Appreciate it. Appreciate your work. Dave, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, if now's the time, I would just add that I think this is a good measure. I've worked with a number of them over the years, and I certainly wouldn't say that about all of them. I think that there are really three major applications for this kind of an instrument. One, as Commissioner Rothrock just described, would be to associate this with some kind of merit increase or adjustment in salary that would typically be applied at year end. And a second would be to tie it to performance improvement plan. Really as part of the, I don't mean this necessarily in the way it sounds, but as part of the progressive discipline process, to be able to catalog an employee's performance throughout is really critical, not just, for the purposes of making sure that we're covering our tracks, but, for the employee's sake, to make sure that they're given every opportunity to improve their, to develop into the role that they're expected to perform. And then thirdly, most importantly, in my opinion, is for professional development in our workforce, to be able to give them a objective and comprehensive assessment of their performance and their core strengths, as well as their opportunities for continued development. I think this measure does that all. It doesn't box any specific employee into a set of competencies that may not necessarily apply to all job classifications. You can apply this template to a highway worker, you can apply it to a department director, anywhere in between, above, below, wherever you'd like. So I think overall it's a very good measurement, and it should also be looked at as kind of a fluid document. If we apply this in the first year and we identify areas to improve on it, or things that perhaps aren't working as intended, then we can pivot from there and be able to revise that strategy going forward. So I think it's a good start. And the next step will really be to work on implementation and train our supervisory staff, directors, as well as frontline supervisors, and being able to really use this in the way it's intended. So.
All right, good. Anybody else have any questions before we move on? All right, next up is police. Commissioner Falona.
No report from me, but I'll call in our Director of Public Safety, Rob.
Trying to follow this agenda. Is this where we do the civil service, or is this later?
Civil service comes in the consent agenda, which is later.
Later?
Yes.
I have nothing yet.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, no report.
All right. Fire and EMS, Commissioner Histora.
Yes, thank you. The Public Safety Committee met on April 21st, had a very productive meeting. Just a couple highlights on the EMS side. They announced that the National EMS Week is May 15th to the 21st, which actually coincides with the Susquehanna Township Police and Public Works weeks that we had approved at the last workshop at the end of April. And one thing they, EMS also encouraged is township residents to renew or retain memberships for emergency medical calls. Very important to have that membership, and reported on emergency calls for the first quarter, 382 in January, 269 in February, and 342 in March. So very active, there. Also, the Rescue Fire Department mentioned that they're participating in the Amazon Smiles program as a fundraiser. And if you're familiar with that, through Amazon, I know my wife participates with a nonprofit organization. It's a way whenever you buy on Amazon, you can select a worthy cause, and in this case, Rescue Fire Company is participating now, so that when you make a purchase, part of the proceeds would go towards the organization you selected. So encourage township residents to take a look at that, because it doesn't cost you anything more. It's just a small percentage of the purchases you make on Amazon would go, in this case, the Rescue Fire Company. The other thing I wanted to I did mention to the group that in February, the state legislature and Governor Wolf signed into law a $25 million EMS grant program, and I encourage them to take a look to see if maybe we would have specific grants that we could apply for. They're going to do that. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Commissioner. Recreation, Commissioner Falona.
Yeah, for the Recreation Committee, we continue to, our Parks and Rec department, headed by Doug, is continuing to work on upgrading our parks and playgrounds. This one, so Doug may have some details there on. Also, we did have a great turnout at the Wetlands Festival last month. So it's just interesting that the booth where we're at is actually in the township. So it's a great way to really promote recreation in the township for all the attendees too. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Bids and agreements. Have none?
Planning and zoning?
Planning and zoning. Sorry, left you out, Rocky.
Sorry.
Go for it.
There was a planning commission meeting on the 28th of April. There were three requests considered. One was a final subdivision plan for houses in Oakhurst condominiums. There were a number of neighbors who came and raised objections, and the developer's attorney and the neighbors agreed that they would meet and try to work out their differences. So that item was tabled. We had a final land development plan for 3801 Walnut Street, which was a existing convenience store, and an addition was to be added to that. And that was tabled pending approval of variance at the next zoning hearing board meeting. And there was also Russell Drive, Lot 2, which was plan for development of a 78-unit multifamily residential development, but the applicant requested that be tabled. So no action was taken on these, but hopefully some progress anyway. The zoning hearing board meeting of the 4th of May, looked at one item, that was the 3801 Walnut Street. They were appealing the zoning officer's determination of a certain sign category that applied to that, and also looking for sign area and setback from the street variances. It turned out the appeal was granted in terms of the zoning officer's determination, but the sign area and the setback variances were denied. So I guess it was denied in terms of how the applicant looked at it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ordinances, resolutions, land development plans. First up is a resolution, and we just talked about this with Ms. Hess, a resolution by the township establishing a performance evaluation system in the township. Attached here 2 is Exhibit A, and directly after this we'll also consider the extension of Nancy's work to be considered by the board to actually implement the plan. So, Dave, is there anything you want to say to tee this up?
No, sir, Mr. President, unless there's any other questions, the resolution's been attached to the agenda.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion, Mr. President.
All right. And is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fleming. All right, it's been moved and seconded, and this would establish the performance evaluation system as Dave explained previously. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I just want to make sure what we're voting on here. From the previous discussion, I think my understanding was that we are voting to establish a evaluation system, which I think is a desirable thing, but only in the form of a template which is to be adjusted before adoption. Is that correct? In other words, this is not going to be word for word that's my understanding, that this isn't going to word for word be the evaluation system.
So what's being adopted is the policy, or what you'll find attached with Exhibit A. The template, including, as Commissioner Rock, and now you can look at the adjustment, is going to reflect the provisions incorporated in the policy. So even though the template is not part of the policy, to allow for it to be a little bit, revisable depending on the hardware needs and observations, the policy itself will be a board established directive, and so we'll adhere to that.
Well, what I'm particularly concerned about is the COLA plus percentage award section. Is that consistent with the way that we've been rewarding good performance or, mediocre performance in the past? Or is that a major change?
We've had no performance review system in the past.
Okay, so we didn't have any COLA plus awards for performance.
It was done ad hoc at budget committee meetings with the approval of the board.
Okay.
This is really, Steve has been a hound dog in this, and rightfully so for his entire tenure on the board.
I just wanted to know how, is this going to change how our employees expect to be reviewed and rewarded?
I hope so. Because employees in the township used to get boxcar raises, whether it was 3%, 3.5%, 4%.
Right, yeah.
There was absolutely no incentive to do better. There was no establishment of goals.
Okay.
There was no discussion of goals once during a year, let alone 4 times during a year.
Okay.
So, as you can tell, Steve's excited about it. I'm excited about it too, because this is the first time in township history we've ever done this.
Yeah, well, I think it's good to have an evaluation and reward system.
Absolutely.
I don't have the background to know where we're coming from and where we're going
Right.
to.
Right, as Nancy said, the COLA plus X% that you just referred to, that's just an example. And that will not be presented to employees. And the last thing in the world we want to do is build up an expectation with employees. So if I reach level A or B or C, I'm going to get 2% plus, cost of living. So that's something for Dave and Betsy to work out, and as they implement it with Nancy's help.
Okay.
All we're doing with this is authorizing the establishment of a policy.
Which I favor.
Okay.
If I may add just one qualifying statement to that, Mr. President, I think it's important to note that the application of this policy and performance evaluation measure to merit adjustments would only apply to non-union employees. Any members of our bargaining units, either with the Township Authority, the Highway Division, or the Police Department, they do their own measure, so they would continue to operate under that system as well. Their increases or salary adjustments are contractual, so we would not be able to apply this same practice to those employees as we would to the non-union members.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I mentioned earlier that I'd bring the other one up in the agenda so that we can let Nancy go out and enjoy the sunshine if she so chooses. And I'm trying to find it.
K1. Under old business.
Okay.
It's not like the third page.
Okay, yeah, this is the implementation. So this is an extension of our previous arrangement with Nancy. Total cost is $900 for the implementation of the performance evaluation policy. Dave, do you have anything you'd like to add to that before I ask for a motion?
Just very briefly, thank you. This is just a supplement, as you noted. It would provide some additional training hours for Ms. Hess to serve as kind of a train-the-trainer. So there's group process, group training, and then some one-on-one facilitation as needed. This will really help to ensure that the policy that was just adopted by the Board of Commissioners is implemented as
Mr. President, can I make a motion?
Absolutely.
I make a motion to authorize the township manager to execute a contract supplement to Nancy Hess Associates in the amount of $900.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Barczak. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you, Nancy. It's been a long road to hoe, but
Yes.
we're getting near the promised land. Yeah. Okay, next one is Doug Knaus, right? Is that you? Okay. This is a resolution, you want to explain it? It's a grant application for Walkworks.
Yes, this would be a $20,000 grant application with Walkworks with the Department of Health. The funding would go towards the township-wide bicycle pedestrian greenway plan that we have also applied for a $30,000 grant for with DCNR. This would be part of the match process for that. DCNR grants are 50-50 match. So the hope is that we're awarded both and we're able to hopefully cover most of the costs of the whole plan process.
Is there a match to the 20,000?
No.
Okay. All right. Would anybody care to make a motion?
Motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes.
I just have a question about the actual grant. The funds are to go to develop a plan?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Aye. And motion carries. Good luck with the grant application, Doug. Appreciate your work. Okay, next is reports. Township Manager Dave Provoca.
Thank you, Mr. President. Provided with your agenda is my report for the evening. Just one quick highlight in the report and a couple of things to add on. Please note that the Board of Commissioners workshop, which was originally scheduled for May 26th at Holtzman Elementary, has been moved because of scheduling conflict. After consultation with the board, we scheduled the meeting for May 25th. That has been confirmed, so that will take place at the usual time, 6:30 p.m. on May 25th. The rest of my report is as written, but I will add that I will be, along with Assistant Manager Logan, out of the office on May 23rd through the 25th, attending the Association of Pennsylvania Municipal Management Conference. That happens to be right here in Hershey, so we'll probably be going back and forth. We'll certainly be reachable as needed. Thirdly, I wanted to ask if Solicitor Madden might look into an issue that has emerged with regard to the parking of trailers on streets in the township. I don't know if you have anything on that or follow up on that at a later date.
Can you hear me? When you say trailers, like towing trailers?
Yeah, like recreational vehicles, work trailers. Some are parked there. It's like a parking spot forever.
Got it.
And it's an issue throughout the township.
Okay.
And there's, not only, sightliness, it's line of sight issues as well.
Sure.
So it's and we've talked to the chief about this and want to dig in. And I think there's an article coming out in the newsletter, isn't there? That's it.
There is a kind of a brief kind of graphic that shows what's allowed both on street and off street for parking vehicles.
But if you/Mike can get together with Rob, Chief Martin, and come up with a strategy for us, that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
And then, if I'm not sure, Mr. President, now is the right time to ask Commissioner Hisro to talk about the Indian Wheels program, or if you want to cover that later in the agenda.
He's cleared his throat.
I'm being offered multiple microphones. Yes, Indian Wheels effort to, it's going to be discontinued due to lack of volunteers and interest in the sense of people asking for that service. It's going to be reported in the next newsletter, which will be coming out very shortly. The only thing it's subject to further staff review and legal review to ensure we're crossing all T's and dotting I's before it is discontinued completely. But that's where we're headed right now.
Great. Thanks, Carl. Anything else, Dave?
No, sir, unless there's any questions, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. Engineer, you got anything?
Thank you, Mr. President. In your package, Commissioners, you have our engineering report and for your review, and I can certainly answer any questions regarding anything reported in that report. Additionally attached is the requested exhibits for all of the HOP work associated with the Susquehanna Union Green Development, and I can certainly entertain any questions in regard to that as well. That concludes my report otherwise.
Yeah, Alex, I had a question about Boyd Park.
Sure.
I saw that the flush toilets are not going to happen because of lack of utilities. I wondered what the lack of utilities was.
So it was originally thought in the initial discussion there would be sanitary and water on Continental. That turned out not to be the case. So there would be significant costs associated with connecting at alternate locations due to the distance and clearing that would be involved, and it would be disruptive to the vegetation as well. So we had a discussion with the authorities, engineer GHD. They basically gave us the blessing to go ahead, but just said, this is going to be a very expensive lateral. So
That was a good call. I just wondered what was there. I figured the water and sewer on the street.
I think everybody did, but it's actually the in-between point between two separate systems.
I can see that where it is. Yeah.
So I think the thought, and it's more of a consideration of Doug's, is that potentially as the Margaret's Grove field becomes in use, there could be potential to tie in a restroom up at that field location. So in a subsequent phase. Yeah.
All right. Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to ask with Nate here, depending on who's best to answer, the Catherine Street work involving the drainage ditch that runs along that street. It's been on report for some time. I didn't know there was a schedule yet when that work would be completed.
There is no schedule. As far as I know, that's been placed on hold. I can certainly follow up with Matt Panano, who was the engineer that was working on that, and see, what tentative schedule there is. I'm not sure that you know anything about it at this point, so it may be worth, visiting the site with Nate and see what we can figure out as far as a tentative schedule. But as far as I know, we're kind of waiting on Township for guidance on how to proceed. So Nate being new, it would be worth digging back into it. So we can certainly do that.
That would be great.
Sure.
I just know since I've been here in January, it's been on the report, and it was something that I had noted last year when I was surveying the ward myself. And I'd like to see the project get done within a reasonable period of time, that's all.
Sure. Yeah, we'll dig into it.
All right, and you are, Solicitor Madden. Do you have anything?
No report.
All right, thank you. Authority, Commissioner Napper.
No report, sir.
Oh, skipped over Commissioner Pine with the school board.
No report per se, but I want to say that the president of the school board survived a pretty serious motorcycle accident. Something that speaks well for Helen. His helmet went through in his head, through the back of his SUV. Pretty serious. But no report specifically on the school board, Mr. President. Unless Commissioner Fleming would have anything to add.
Yes, Commissioner Fine, thank you so much. I just want to briefly mention that at Monday's school board meeting, featured a presentation by Dwayne Ford, who is the president of the Susquehanna Township Alumni Association. He reported out on the reemergence of a program in Susquehanna Township that introduces students to governance and the legislative process. It's called Youth in Government. It is a program that my wife was a part of for 4 years and I was a part of my senior year. And Susquehanna Township once had a great tradition as far as youth in government is concerned. And I'm happy to say now it's been reignited after a little dormant period. While our students, there were 4 students who were involved this year, and they were adopted, for lack of a better term, by the Friendship YMCA chapter. And so it used to be East Shore Y, so students that attend Central Dauphin, Central Dauphin East, mostly. Now the Friendship Y chapter, and those 4 students were Jordan Bowser, Chris Fleming, Mason Bluebold, and Nicholas Mabry. They just joined the program a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, the last 6 weeks. So they didn't get to introduce or write a bill, but they did participate in the model legislature program last month. and two of the students, Nicholas Mabry and Chris Fleming, impressed so much that they were invited to the Council on National Affairs for 2022. And so they will be going to Black Mountain, North Carolina for a week later on this summer to join delegates all across the country who participate in youth and government programs in their states. So, really proud of my son is one of those students, so I'm extraordinarily proud of him and the rest of the students. And Jordan Bouncer was selected as an alternate coach. So just a great job by them, and good to see that our program, our youth and government program, has been resurrected. In the late 90s, when I participated, we had 2 youth governors from Susquehanna Township, which was a big deal back then. So glad to see that program is coming back, and it teaches kids about not only about the legislative process, but about working together, enhancement of public speaking, and gives them a lot of confidence in terms of how a legislature should run. The kids were civilized, and every year they take over the Capitol for a few days, and it's just a delight. It's a wonderful program. So just wanted to mention that those students got a shout out from a presentation at the school board meeting, and a shout out from the student board. So that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Congratulations, proud papa. Shaker, do you have anything there?
Mr. President, just on one item, I wondered if we might be able to even tentatively schedule discussions on the tree removal program that we have funded, but I think we need implementing ordinance to create the program and to utilize the funds that we budgeted for the tree removal program. That's obviously a program of assisting residents who have a tree that is along the tree line, and the tree is a threat to fall, what have you, but the individual does not have the means to replace or remove the tree. And as I say, we budgeted funds, and if we can just set a schedule for attempting to enact the benevolent ordinance.
Yeah, basically come up with a plan, means testing and all that kind of stuff, as we've talked about last year's budget cycle.
If I may, just to clarify, we provide assistance with trees that are like probably near sidewalks.
In the tree
roadway.
In the tree line.
In the township right away.
That would be.
Right, yeah, okay, we say tree line, I wanted to make sure it's clear to me, because we're talking about a long way, like sidewalks and near the streets.
Right. Yeah, we're not doing your backyard, Carl. Dave, could you put together a meeting to that effect?
Yes, sir, I can.
When you're back? That'd be great. All right, good.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Communications, newsletter's coming out soon, Doug?
Yes, we finalized and approved the newsletter draft today. That was sent back to GrafTech, and the current plan is for it to be to the post office on the 20th, next Friday.
Great. Thank you. All right, before moving on to old business, I neglected to mention that the board did meet in executive session where we discussed matters of personnel and litigation. Now on to old business. You have a report?
Yeah.
All right, let's go for it with human relations.
Yes, thank you. Usually we don't have a report, but this time we do. We did have a reorganization meeting on April 19th, and Ray Landis was elected new chairperson, Mary Nancaro, vice chairperson, and Amy Putt was elected secretary. I can report we do have 8 members now of the 9. Several, as you know, have been filled in the last couple of weeks, so that's a positive sign. And with the reorganization meeting, there was discussion about how the group can look at ways within its ordinance of providing in a proactive way educational training within the township. We're going to take a look at that. They also talked about with the Pride Festival coming up at the end of July. And in the past, they had rented a table at the Pride Festival. And in fact, they've already scheduled a next meeting on June 15th in order to discuss that and then some of these other issues. Great report.
Thanks, Commissioner. Park and Rec, I know we already covered this, but did you have anything else, Fred? Did you have anything else, Park and Rec? Good. Going back to old business. Approval of contract addendum with Zen City Technologies Limited for our long-term agreement, for a term agreement beginning June 14th and ending following year. That's it.
Yes, this is a contract that's in front of you for in the amount of $23,000 for renewal of our Zen City contract. If you recall, I believe we signed the contract in January, and this is a program that data mines social media to figure out what's going on in the community that's not being directly reported to us, so that if there's issues that the people are having or concerns they're having, that the township can be proactive to address them without waiting for it to kind of build up. You do have a report. I've been adding it to my packet every month since we've been getting it. So it kind of goes over the highlights, and it has been useful to see like when things are kind of boiling over, such as Penn Waste not picking up things. If the fire department last weekend, had a fire that we got a lot of positive feedback on. That'll be in your next month's report. But we are requesting that you would renew the program for 1 year. We had a 6-month trial period within that product. We also are now using a program called Civil Space, which is a kind of outreach program that allows for surveys and discussions. So Doug has implemented that for the what kind of programming people would want to see in the community for recreation. There currently is a survey that is available online through this app program, which has some questions. I think we posted it on Nextdoor yesterday, and we've now gotten like 60 people feedback on it. So it has kind of a 2-pronged approach. So it has the data mining process as well, along with this additional service, which because of the limited data mining they were able to collect for our area, they offered this up, and it's been beneficial for Doug especially, but we also would like to be using that once we go through the ordinance process, when we have the final review of that, as well as we're getting close to having a survey done for the local climate action plan, which you guys probably haven't heard me talk about in a very long time, but it is still going along, so.
Okay, is there a motion?
I can make a motion. If we approve the contract addendum for Zen City for the term beginning June 14, 2022 and ending June 14, 2023, in the amount of $23,000.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Rockwell. So, Betsy, you feel there's value in this? There's all kinds of data, information flowing out there.
Yeah.
But does it channel it correctly for our needs?
I think that it does. I mean, as I think everyone knows, the school district is the one that's popping up the most, but they are able to take that information and kind of filter that to say, yes, this is what's going on with the school district, but this is what's going on with the township. We're also working to integrate some more social media platforms that maybe hadn't gotten touched before, especially for like local communities of like different ethnic backgrounds. So we are adding stuff to that as we go. I just think the 6 months, we could use another year. I don't know that we'll continue to see the benefit in it, but for a year, I think we'd like to keep trying it.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there a way that we can see a summary of that? I know you put it in your monthly report, but.
Yep. You want to be able to look at
And I don't want to make, put more items on your to-do list on a daily or weekly basis, but just, I think it'd be interesting to see what's out there.
Yeah, I mean, you can all have access to it. It's just a really easy dashboard to use. So that would be the easiest way for you to see it. You can also request reports. So in speaking with them, they recommended that we request a report specifically to see what's kind of the activities on Penn Waste, and then we'll do like a deeper dive into that data.
Okay, does it cost more with more users?
No. So I'll look at getting you guys set up, and I can send you the link to how you can use that if you want to get more information.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next up is also Betsy, which is Administrative Office Renovations Project Change Order Requests. And there's, it looks like 4 of them. You want to go over them, Betsy?
Sure. The first one is for the soffit manufacturer costs. The finish that was selected for the exterior use longboard was not an exterior finish, finish that could be used. That is it, right? So the finish they picked was not applicable to exterior uses, so they had to change that finish, and there was a cost increase for that. That's an amount of $3,151. The door manufacturer change, which is in the amount of $4,341, relates to a change in doors that we had to use. This was related to supply chain issues. The doors that were proposed were going to be in maybe August. They were about a 24-week lead time. This was discussed, I believe, with the planning or the building and grounds committee as well when we did our tour. So some of these that you'll see have been sitting for a while. You're just not ready. The accessible restroom change, which is in the amount of $10,545, was related to the ADA bathroom that we are creating. We took the 2 bathrooms that were in the kind of manager's area previously and created one ADA accessible bathroom, but what they didn't realize that it was a block wall and not just drywall. So they had to open up that block wall further back, like 2 inches or something like that, in order to get the required width for the wheelchair that they needed. And the final one would be the hallway window treatments. You guys approved a window treatment quote at the last meeting. However, what wasn't included was the little hallway between the administrative office and the police office. So this would just be consistent with all the other blinds that are in the, that are being put in the new administrative side.
Okay, we could use a motion, and the motion would be for all 4 of them. I'm advised by our solicitor that we could move on all 4, but the discussion could be on each individual one once the motion's made and seconded.
I'll move that we approve the 4 change orders presented for the administrative office renovation project.
Seconded by Commissioner Fleming. Comments or questions? Commissioner Hitzer? No? Anybody else? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Opposed, motion carried. Out of $1 million project or so, get these change orders, might as well get them taken care of. So bump on.
Yeah. There will be one more that you'll see, and this is related to tech issues. We had to make some changes to where our AV closet was going to be located. So you'll see that in the future. But we also anticipate some reductions coming up related to the glass paneling in the front because of supply chain issues. We switched to a different brand, which is a reduced cost, and there's some other costs that we were able to cut back on.
Good, thank you very much. Did we vote on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. All right, new business consent agenda. There are several items on there. Statement of bills paid, should all be in your packets. Building renovation project, pay application number 4. Civil service list certification is in there. Financial security reduction number 2, Cherry Orchard Place. Financial security reduction number 3, Susquehanna Union Green. And phases 2A, 2C, 2E, 3B. And 5, financial security reduction, Susquehanna Union Green, phase 1. Motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Pine. Second by Commissioner Falona. Chief, at this point, since the civil service list is listed as one of the consent agenda items, you want to address that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So with the approval of the civil service license certification, my first request is, thank you, that we extend a conditional offer of employment to Mr. Norman Davenport for the Susquehanna Township Police Department.
We got to vote on this first.
We have to go through this agenda first, but
Did you want to comment on the?
did you want to comment on the civil service certification
I don't.
list?
No.
Okay.
All new to me. Okay. Used to do it a different way.
I know.
Used to be easier.
These new guys from State College, I don't know.
You're next up, Rob.
Don't go too far.
Yeah.
Call me when you need me.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now you're up. Chief Robert Martin. And after this, we'll need to address the traffic studies, which we didn't do under the manager section, as we used to do it years ago.
10-4. So my first recommendation is to extend to Mr. Norman Davenport a conditional offer of employment for the police department.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I'd like to so move.
Okay. He beat you. Moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Secondly,
Yes.
I recommend that we extend a conditional offer of employment to Mr. Robert Neely for the police department.
And I would like to so move on that as well, for approving Robert Neely to the police department.
Thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Falona. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. That's great. So you'll reach out to them as soon as.
Yes, sir. I'll take it from there. Thank you.
While you're here, Chief, are you ready or prepared to address the traffic studies? Normally, we address those under the manager.
Which,
Yeah, the Schoolhouse Lane and Crooked Hill Road.
I can address those. First one I'll address is traffic study for Crooked Hill Road. Attaches a study for speed calming on Crooked Hill Road. Recommendations are for additional markings of quote-unquote slow 25 mph south of Apollo Avenue. It's also recommended to paint all faded traffic calming painting that is already there. I concur with these recommendations.
Yeah, my understanding, Mr. President, is that we don't have to make a motion on these, is it, right? Okay, I do, but he's saying I did want to, I had asked, one of my constituents had asked, had witnessed a lot of speeding on that stretch. And I do take note that at the 85th percentile speed, the two locations, it was 40 miles and the other was almost 46 miles per hour. And they're both like in the 25-mile range, so that's definitely well above the like 10-mile allowance given. And so I do support the additional markings. And I did take note that I think there was a recommendation to do additional speed monitoring.
Yes.
And given those speeds, I would fully support that because those do seem to be fairly high speed going through that area.
Yes. Absolutely. We'll continue to do that.
Do you drive it every day? Because I do.
I drive it frequently,
And
but not every day.
every day, a couple times a day. And 40 miles per hour from where it's posted is fine. It's 25 from the 81 bridge all the way up to Englishtown Road. So I don't see the problem personally.
The speed limit is 25, well, basically from Paxton Church Road up.
Correct. All the way to Englishtown Road, it's 25.
Right, correct.
So what's the problem?
He rides a bike.
Oh, okay.
So do you, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a residential area. I mean, 20 miles over the speed limit is pretty significant.
It's not a residential area where the 40 miles per hour is. From Paxton Church Road, when you get to the bridge, it turns 40 all the way up to Elmerton Avenue.
Oh, sure, no.
That's not residential.
No, but that's not the problem. I don't think that was the problem area. The request was Paxton Church Road up to Linglestone Road.
Right, that's 25.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a problem with 25 miles per hour?
No.
So you're going to do additional monitoring
Oh, yes.
as time goes by?
Yes, and we also do ongoing monitoring of the stop sign at
Thank you.
Waiting Spring.
Yep.
Thank you.
Second study, traffic study for traffic calming in the 31, 3200 blocks of Schoolhouse Lane. That's going to be on the west side of Progress Avenue, South Progress Avenue. The recommendation is to post 31 and 3200 blocks of Schoolhouse Lane with 25 mile per hour speed signs. And the study has the locations. And secondly, paint slow 25 mph in front of 3202 Schoolhouse Lane for westbound traffic, and slow 25 mph in front of 3103 Schoolhouse Lane for eastbound traffic. And I concur with these recommendations.
Any comments or questions of the chief? All right. Nice chief. Next up is we're in need of a zoning officer, community planner. Do you have any ideas, Beth?
Yes, I would be very thankful if the board would consider appointing Edward McBreach to serve as the community planner zoning officer of Susquehanna Township effective May 23rd, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Rothrock. Any questions or comments? We did have the pleasure of meeting Mr. Breach in executive session. It was a breath of fresh air. And assuming this vote goes well for you, welcome you aboard and wish you all the best and get to work.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's vote first. It's not jinxing. All right. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you as well.
Fair enough. Commissioner comments, do we have any?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just to make sure that everyone still knows and remember, the election is next Tuesday. In the 6th Ward, polling places changed from the Progress Fire Company community building to Our Savior Lutheran Church at 420 North Progress Avenue with the entrance on Trinity Road. That'll be all.
I have just one comment as well. I just wanted to note in a positive way, we all received emails the last 2 days for cybersecurity training, not only at commissioners, but staff at the township. And that was something I had brought up in my days as an attorney at the PUC. We did a cybersecurity study, and I just think this is an area that we can't have enough training. And so I'm very pleased to see that we're taking that issue seriously and providing training for our staff and even for us commissioners. So I want to commend the township for taking that step. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President.
Commissioner.
This is for Assistant Manager Logan or Manager Provolka. I have a question about the street cut permits. Is there a process in place for, once the work has been completed, that there's an individual that will go and inspect and make sure the work is up to standards?
Yes, there is a process in place. We've struggled with that process for, I would say, years. We had come to a decent process, I would say, over the last year and a half. And then with staffing changes, we have to kind of re-up to that process.
Okay, and I know we've been short-staffed, but I noticed, and I'm sure it's throughout the township, but in my neighborhood, there's a number of places where I'm sure they apply for street cut permits, and the road has not been completely repaired. I don't know the correct terminology, but maybe they just threw coal patch. It's not finished, the edges aren't sealed, and some of them are actually sinking.
If you can let me know,
Okay,
that would be really helpful, because, we do try to go out. We have some road companies that like to do street cuts without approvals. And that's been our hardest kind of issue, especially as they, since the sewer laterals, or the sewer laterals are technically owned by the property owner all the way to the main, the way that our ordinance works. Generally, any plumber or company will go in and do the work, but there's specific ones who sometimes don't get the permits before, don't provide the bond that they're required to, or don't notify us. We struggled with them. I know other municipalities have actually not allowed them to work in their municipality because of how frustrating it is to get work with them.
Yeah.
So, but if you can let us know the location, date, and I can go look at those.
Yeah, I will, and I noticed that some of the worst are actually where there were sewer laterals replaced. And just of note that I see we had 57 street cut permits this year already, so I know it's very overwhelming.
There's probably another 25 million to be issued, so there's
Thank
a lot
you.
of them.
Yeah, follow up to that one. So, I noticed on my street, UGI work being done, and the street is concrete, right? But now, after the work is now asphalt, is a temporary, to become obviously under the process.
The street is concrete and now it's asphalt?
After they dig and whatnot, then what's the standard there? Is it supposed to be concrete again after?
I'm just trying to think of what street is concrete. Are you talking about the sidewalk area?
No, the actual roadway. Yeah.
What street is it?
Centerville. Yeah. I'm not trying to. Yeah.
It might just be that the old asphalt looks
Maybe the old
so gray compared to the new asphalt. That could be it.
It is asphalt, and it's similar to what Commissioner Robarczyk was stating. It's temporarily patched with coal patch or base material. It doesn't dry nice. It doesn't settle well. It's not sealed. So I live on Cloverfield, so I'm very familiar with that.
Okay. Because I just know that, so it's uneven, And I think one time I passed by 2 days ago, it was even more, I don't think it's out yet.
Yeah, so they have the lines to saw cut and do permanent patching. It just hasn't been done yet, so.
And Alice, do they also have to kind of wait till after the April 15th date?
Right, and they have to wait till paving season, so we're in it now, so they should be hopefully coming through and doing the permanent patching.
Yeah, but we are supposed to have somebody, they're supposed to contact us when they are starting to fill so that we know that they're filling it properly. Another thing that we could do to kind of help that would be to do, especially as we start our paving, actually doing paving on roads, would be to have a moratorium on street cuts. A lot of municipalities have that in their ordinance, we just do not.
Any other comments before we seek an adjournment? The chair will entertain the motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Hisbro, seconded by Commissioner Pop. Any good discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good night, everybody.